All right.
Hey everyone, welcome to Senator America. It's been a while since you guys have seen
Man,
our faces.
it's been a long time. I'm glad to be back.
It's very good to be back, but today we have a very special guest, Lev Parnas, who's currently running as a congressional candidate for Florida's 27th district. Some of you know him for the work he's been doing here on Substack. And for those who aren't aware, Lev is also a former associate to Rudy Giuliani. He became involved in a false investigation into Hunter Biden, which failed to implicate him criminally. This investigation had the intent of losing Joe Biden the presidential bid. Lev was also later convicted of campaign finance violations, fraud-related offenses, and false statements. And in 2022, he was sentenced to 20 months in federal prison in order to pay more than $2.3 million in restitution. He has committed crimes for Donald Trump, and now he's running for Congress. Before we get into this interview, we want to let you know that all of the questions we're going to ask are backed by verified, publicly available information and sources. We have it all at this link here. It's senateamerica.org/learnaboutlev. You can look at all of our sources, and Gavin made the website.
Yeah, we just did that because we didn't want, we wanted to control, just make sure that just for Lev's sake that we're not using any false information, and also for journalistic integrity so that you guys understand where we're grabbing our information from, and where we're citing everything. So all of that should be right here. There should be like a little banner coming across the screen. And also check out our new page. I've been working kind of hard on it. I think it looks pretty good in my opinion. But while you're over there, check out the new Senator America page. Let us know how it is. And yeah, let's bring Lev on
to the stage. All right.
Awesome. How are you doing, Lev? Welcome
Hey,
to the
thank
show.
you.
We'd love to have you introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit more about you. Just kind of introduce yourself to the wonderful Senator Americans here on the chat right now.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. My name is Lev Parnas. For those of you that don't know me, I was born in the Soviet Union in a place called Odessa, Ukraine. I immigrated to the United States. This year is going to be my 50th year anniversary since I came to the United States. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and then immigrated to Florida. Spent the most of my life, over 30 years, in Florida. I have 7 kids. They all were born in the United States, 6 of them here in Florida. I'm married to a wonderful wife. Her name is Svetlana. And I'm somebody that was a businessman, never involved in politics, had a very interesting career, actually. Some of you might have read my book, or maybe you watched the documentary, but I was somebody that grew up in a tough place in the streets of Brooklyn. My father passed away when I was 11 years old. And I grew up in a place where you looked up to people like Donald Trump, powerful, rich, influential, and kind of, my first paths with the Trump family kind of intertwined when I was 15 years old and I was working for a real estate company. We started doing a project for Donald Trump's father, Fred. And that was my first interaction working for his father. And then later in the years, our lives kind of, we've never done business, never really had a social interaction, but our lives paths crossed because of people that we both knew in business, people that we both knew socially, same crowds and so on, until eventually when he ran for office. Once he ran for office and he announced, at first, again, I wasn't very political. I was more interested in being in a room with a lot of rich individuals like himself. I never thought he was going to win. And there was a night where we held a fundraiser dinner for him. It was a month prior to the election. It was right after when he came out with that, NBC tape with the Billy Bush, grabbed the female by the private parts. His ratings were down. Nobody really cared about him that much at the time. And we held a fundraiser at one of his big GOP donors. And at that dinner, that's when my life changed and our worlds collided. He was supposed to spend about 15, 20 minutes there, but he ended up spending about an hour and a half. We ended up having a dinner. Rudy Giuliani was there, Brian Ballard, a lot of, his people were there. And at that dinner, there was about 20 people, 10 couples max that were there. And for that hour, it was like, me and him kind of were just, two guys talking back from Brooklyn, just back and forth. And I say it in, in my documentary, I was like Trumpanized, Meganized, whatever you want to call, cultinized. At that moment, I became, is when I really started getting more politicized, you could say. And he asked me to travel with him that last month. I spent almost every day with him and the family, traveling from, his rallies all over the country to going to the third debate with Hillary Clinton. I was front row sitting there in Las Vegas. So eventually, being at the Hilton Hotel when he won, I was there at the stage when him and his family, I was on the stage with them, but I was at the right left of the stage with his close, immediate type of family and friends with him in New York when he won. And basically, that was kind of it at that time, living the life a dream, being, around somebody that powerful. And at some point I was approached by an individual by the name of Igor Fruman, who was my ex-partner. He was a Ukrainian American that had business in Ukraine, and because of me posting a lot of my interests with the Trump family and Trump being the president, a lot of people were reaching out to me to do all kinds of business deals. And Igor happened to want to do an energy deal. It was a big deal. I won't bore you. We won't go into the details, but long story short, we decided that we were going to donate a lot of money to the GOP to be able to get into people like Harold Ham, Sargent and others, big, rich oil and gas guys, because of a deal that we were doing in Ukraine. And at that point, simultaneously, around the same time, I was approached by one of Trump's super PACs, and this is one of the things I'm running on as one of my policies. Is very importantly is to stop foreign money, stop this shade, money coming into these super PACs, special interest PACs, all of these different vehicles that are set up to be able to hide where the money's really coming from and allow people to, foreign groups to invest. And that's where actually I went to prison for later on, which I'll get to. But I got very close in that world. We donated a lot of money. Long story short, at some point I was approached by Rudy Giuliani, and he asked me, without telling you my whole life story, but he asked me if we could help him in Ukraine because of our back. Or my partner was Ukrainian, my origin. I come from Ukraine. We had a lot of friends there to be able. And at that point, it wasn't dig up dirt, because at that point, I was a true believer. At that point, I was, thinking I'm going to be an American hero. I'm saving the against the deep state, which we were all fighting for. So, I truly believe that Hunter Biden, Joe Biden were crooks, criminals, that the FBI, that were coming to get Trump, the whole shebang, which you still see till this day, which a lot of people till this day still believe. That's how powerful that cult is. But I was not only just in the cult, I was one of the main leaders of that cult. I helped put together that cult, and that's another reason why I'm running in this campaign, is because out of all the people running around across the country, and especially in my campaign, all newcomers, none of them have ever been in a room with Donald Trump or any of the people in his administration, have no clue. They might be great people, and but we'll get to that in a second, but none of them have any idea of what this administration's about. And that's why we're here today. Just like the Biden administration, which I'm very close with, Joe Biden and the Bidens, and I'm very close with the Harris, and I was trying to help them, but they wouldn't listen. And that's why we ended up where we are now. So I kind of decided to take matters in my own hands and now do what I'm doing, and which we'll get to in a second with your questions. But to get you up to speed eventually, I ended up being the guy that was on the ground, getting up, digging up all the dirt on Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, pushing it through the media, helping Trump, get this information. Eventually, I was arrested. I was arrested to be able to keep me quiet by Bill Barr. I After my arrest, I got rid of all of Trump's attorneys. As of it's probably going to be 7 years now in December of 26 since I basically got rid of Trump and cut all ties to that world. And after I hired my new attorneys and was able to, I basically went to trial. After that, in Trump's first impeachment, I've given over 300 of the articles of impeachment. I've given 100 of those articles of mine. And I've also helped with investigations behind the closed doors with different agencies agencies having to do with a lot of the stuff that you're seeing. I've also testified in front of Congress under oath about Trump's corruption, about all of the stuff we did there to be able to get Joe Biden out of the fake, impeachment that they were trying to
Yeah.
do. So, and at the end of the day, I ended up here on Substack, and I've been, writing on Substack and, giving this information. We built an incredible community. We built, an incredible platform, but basically it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to just be able to, use my knowledge, my sources and stuff and risking everything I was doing to just be able to go, get some clicks or some likes or some, because with the problem we still have in the media, the problem we have, with Trump shutting down independent journalism and other stuff, it's very difficult to get the truth out. And that's why even today, there's so much more breaking news than just the Iran war, which is, yeah, it's definitely, important breaking, but we should be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. And now the way the media is controlled by Trump. So there's a lot of reasons why I ran, and there's a lot of things I ran on. But basically, that's in a nutshell, who I am and how we got here.
Thank
For
you
those
so
that
much
don't know.
for telling us about you and introducing yourself.
We're so happy to have you here on Centered America Lev. And for those of
Happy
you
to be
who
here.
don't know, we are a 501c4 nonprofit organization defending democracy, resisting authoritarianism, and just giving resources back to the people. Like you, Lev, we're committed to the truth, and that's where we came to Substack because we agree on that. Substack is a great place to foster this, and that's why we're here today, because there's a big question facing the American people about how we can trust those who were former members of Trump's sphere, and not only trust them, but trust them in a position like a congressional seat. And that's why we wanted to have this interview with you here. We wanted to hear your case to the American people. I know we have a lot of questions to ask that we would like to know, and that we feel like the American people would like to know as well.
And so, by the way, Lev, if you didn't hear us, we do have all of our questions we're going to ask you are verified information, publicly available information. We have a website, centeredamerica.org/learnaboutlev, or learn more about Lev, where we have all of our sourcing so that you're protected. We want to make sure all this information is verified fact information. So our first question to you, and you touched on this a little bit, is with your record, why should Americans trust you in Congress, and why should they not support someone else running in the same district who does not have the record that you do?
It's a great question. And my answer is to what record is that? What record are you talking about?
So when we talk about your record, we're talking about you were convicted of campaign finance violations, fraud-related offenses, false statements, sentenced to 20 months in prison.
What does that have to do with winning an election, or what does that have to do with getting Donald Trump out of office?
It's with a more broader.
I'm asking you seriously, because I want to be fair to you guys also, because I know you guys are young and you're trying to do the right thing, and I want to make sure that I actually help you do the right thing. But I want to start the conversation off in a proper manner. You announce yourself to be an independent journalist. You announce yourself to be a 501c to just get out the truth. So let me ask you this question: when was the first time you noticed my reporting on this platform?
It was 2025.
Yeah, so it was last year around the summertime is when we really started to pick up on what you were doing on Substack.
Great,
and we've been doing great work.
My question, that's what I'm saying to you. My question is, so since I've been on Substack, you've been following me. You've never written any articles about me in the sense about my criminal past. It didn't bother you, my criminal past, because you felt that obviously I was doing something that was right for the sake of our democracy. Because, like you said, I was doing good work. Am I correct?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me. We'll get to that. Let's just take one step at a time.
Of course. Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, and this is the problem with the Democratic Party, and this is why I'm running, and I'm going to answer your question. You're going to answer it yourself right now. Is all of a sudden when I announced that I'm running for Congress, the first thing you did, with all due respect, is you didn't reach out to me and said, can we interview, like we're having an interview right now, so we could understand where you stand, your policies. Because the first thing you did is you wrote a letter. You wrote a letter literally I mean, before I even announced, I think it was like within an hour or two after me announcing that I'm running. And the letter wasn't a letter saying, hey, folks, here's a race. These are the candidates. This is everybody. This is what. The letter was based upon why not to vote for me. The letter was based on why we shouldn't trust a criminal, why we shouldn't trust. And the letter was based heavily opinionated on your opinion. And in that letter, you also put in another candidate that I'm running against,
Yeah.
supporting that candidate. Okay, so let me say that. So the first thing you did is you started basically a confrontation between me and that candidate, which is what a problem is here in the democracy. What you should have done is the first thing is if you didn't like or didn't agree with anything I was doing, you should have called me up like every other journalist. And I've never turned down any interview, just like we're gonna have today. And I would have given you the interview, and then you could have wrote your story however you wanted. And you have all the right to support whoever you want and write. And I ask any question, and we will go through all the questions. But that's what you should have done. Secondly, what should go further is what I want you to understand is the what should be going on, and we're going to go answer every question because I want you to go through it. But before we go, the problem with the Democratic Party is everybody tries to destroy each other. Everybody tries to go after each other. And that is why you are here in the position that you are here. My campaign that I'm running is called Unification. I'm going out there to help every Democrat out there, even in my own race, meaning I'm going to win my race not by destroying my candidates that are running. I'm going to win my race by destroying the opposition, who is Maria Salazar. I don't need to attack the guys that are running because you know what? At the end of the day, they are on the same page as me. The difference is we might just have different ways of getting there. We might have different backgrounds. We might have different ideas, and we might have different things that we could help the whole Democratic Party of getting there. And that will be up to the voters to decide. But to put together a web page. Let me ask you this question: do you have a web page also, or up on your 501c3 about my other candidates? Get to know all my candidates like you have on me. I don't hear you. Did I lose you? I don't. Hello. I hear music.
One second. Okay.
Oh, there you go. Now I
Yeah,
hear you. Yeah,
yes, we're interviewing you right now, but once we interview those candidates, we will also have a page. And so to answer your question,
Mhm.
right now,
Mhm.
we 100% understand how that post could have come across. We wanted to include that candidate because we got some comments in the post that said, well, why don't you include some other candidates? So we put one candidate that was just a great candidate. We weren't trying to start a feud with you guys. It was more to give people other options. And
Why is
distinguish
he a
one.
great Why is he a great candidate? But
He's
see,
a
this is the problem.
prosecutor.
Oh,
He's
so
a
what does
prosecutor.
that mean? So what? Prosecutor. So what's
So
Bill Barr is
He has
also Bill Barr.
experience
Hold on a
in.
second. Bill Barr is also a prosecutor. Pam Bondi is also a prosecutor. Answer me. What makes just because you're a
I
prosecutor that makes you a good person?
Yeah, I mean that's not what we're
Yeah,
saying at all. But we're
really.
saying,
That's what you just said
no,
to
that
me.
that's not
No,
that's not what we're
no.
saying.
So then, give me why is he a great candidate? Because you just made some comments here. You're supporting. This is what I'm trying to say to
It,
you
it
guys.
wasn't
yeah,
that
You
we were
don't.
saying he's
You're not. No,
100%.
you
Hey,
just
Lev,
said.
Lev,
You
Lev,
just said.
yeah.
No,
Lev,
your words. It's
Lev.
live. People are
Well, no,
watching us.
hey,
Please.
it's okay. It's okay.
Go
Look,
ahead. Go ahead.
look,
I know
hold
it's
on,
Yeah,
hold
okay.
on. We're not trying to
Yeah.
start a fight with you. We're
Yeah,
trying to ask
we're
you
just trying to
questions.
talk to you
Look,
about
and
your
we
No, you are
100%.
trying. You're no. I'm trying to show that you guys have a biased opinion. You're not who you say you are,
Hey, look,
because you just said because I want to have an interview with you,
but
but
you're
you're
not
you're
allowing us
saying
to
to me
ask you the questions right now.
yeah.
you just said that my candidate is a great candidate. So I asked you what makes him a
We
great
said
candidate. You
we.
said he's a
Yeah, and
Hold
we'd be
on,
prosecutor.
willing
hold
to
on.
talk about we'd be willing to talk about that candidate.
You're
But we're
cutting
talking
us
about you
off.
specifically, and we're asking you
So please tell
questions, and
me.
we're
I'm
going to be
asking you.
asking the
Tell
same
me. Tell me
questions to
why
him.
that's a great candidate
No,
first,
No,
and then I will
and we'll be,
continue.
and if you want to know,
Please, that would be. Yeah, I
join
would
in on
love
the
to
live where
because
we talk to him and we interview
no,
him.
but
Right now, we're
but
talking to
wait.
you and we're asking you
Lev,
questions.
we wanted. So we're saying
Go
that
ahead. Go ahead.
Lev.
Go ahead. Ask your
Yeah,
the
you're
questions. Go
you're cutting us
ahead.
off. Hold
Go
on.
ahead. Have your fun. I'm a criminal. Go ahead. But go
No,
ahead. Ask your
no,
questions.
no.
I can't
That's
wait to see your 8 questions. Let's see what of them have to do with policy. Go ahead, boys. Let's
no.
go.
Okay, hold on.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Ask your question. Let's go.
All right.
Uh
So
huh.
100% we agree with you, and we are very sorry for how that article came off. And we
Uh
actually
huh.
listened to your live that said, hey, if they were real journalists, they would have had a live interview. So that's why we're having this live
Yeah,
interview with
we
you,
wanted
because
to
we want to
extend
ask
that
you
courtesy
that
to you.
questions.
Yeah,
And that's why we changed that article. We wanted to change it to better fit the broader question because we were wrong. We were wrong about how that article came across, and we wanted to reform it. And we also took Shane off the article. And so that's why we wanted to ask you these interview questions, because we do care about what you said, because it means something to us.
And
we
it means
care
something to our supporters as well.
and we a lot of our subscribers overlap, and so we want to apologize to you for how that came across. It was not to
Okay.
cause a feud. It was to ask you these questions because we agree with you.
Okay, I apologize then, because I'll tell you why I got a little bit upset with you.
I
Not even because
understand.
of that, because
Yeah.
early, no, 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 I'll tell you, I'm very honest. Earlier today, Michael Cohen had a show. He went live, and you were listening to that show. And Michael Cohen has been first of all, let me ask you this question: do you support Michael Cohen?
No, 100%
Okay,
no.
okay. But Michael Cohen, and you listened in that show how he praised you, and he used your information
We
to go
never talked
after
to
me.
Michael Cohen.
No, no,
Yeah.
no, no. You were in the show. He said, "I'm shout out to the Center America for the great article that they wrote against Lev Parnas, and and he gave you all the qualifications. You were in the chat. You did not come in and say no. You did not respond. I was there watching this. What I'm saying to you is that you're apologizing to me, but why didn't you write a letter of retraction like a normal journalist and says apology to everybody?
We
And
did.
then
We
where I
reformed the
never
article
got
and
it.
sent an email.
I
Yeah.
never,
Yeah, no, I'm
I
sorry
never
that you
got
never
one.
got it.
Yeah.
We actually sent an email out to all those people. We can show you that email where it actually said, we apologize for how we worded this. We're going to rechange this, and we're going to have a live interview with Lev Parnas. And that's why we reached out
Okay.
to you.
And that's
We
why
All
talked
we
to
right.
want to
Jay
do
about it.
diligence, of course. And that's why we want to
No,
extend this
because
and
I
make
was
sure
with
that
you. I
we're
was with
doing,
you on the
of
Michael
course,
Cohen thing today, and
of course.
I was
And
wondering, and you guys didn't respond
yeah,
to him.
we
That's why
popped
I
in to
was
hear what he was saying about
Yeah,
you.
that's
We
just
don't have
because,
any conversation with Michael Cohen, and we don't support Michael Cohen.
yeah. And
okay.
just as journalists on here on Substack, it's our responsibility for both us and the centered Americans on here to understand and hear everybody on this platform what they're having to say, whether or not we agree with it or not. So if you
Okay.
do see
Fair
centered
enough.
America
All
in
right.
some chats, it's probably because we're doing research on individuals and we're trying to understand the political sphere on Substack and make sure that we have the most up to date information as possible. So if that came
I'm
across,
with you. I'm
yeah,
And
with you.
so I agree. I'm so sorry.
I
I'm so
just,
sorry you
yeah,
felt that way. I
I,
understand.
I just want you to understand one thing, that I want you guys to succeed. I am truthfully want the young people, especially my son is the same thing, is doing the same thing. I would be, if I wish you would have called me out originally, and I would have been helping you with a lot of things going back, what's it called, to make you help you grow your platform. So I
thank
have,
you, Lev.
if we got off on the wrong foot, let's call it what's it called?
Yeah.
Let's start
Let's
off.
call it 100%.
Let's clean slate. I want you guys to interview me as properly as you want. Ask any question. It's not
Thank you.
personal. That what, because this is what it really is. So I take everything back. Let's start a clean
Yeah,
slate, and
100%.
you
And like,
guys absolutely,
and we saw in your live, you were like very, ask me any question. I'm free to ask any question. So,
absolutely.
our first question, and it's not, about a feud between you and another candidate. It's just that there is a big question plaguing the American people
That's right.
about how can we support someone that was in Trump's sphere. I think it's a valid
Absolutely.
question.
That's a great
So,
question. No, I agree with
and
you.
and it's because we want to know. So
No, you're
our
100%
question
right.
to you, our first question is, how do you believe and you feel that someone with your record and your prior connection to Donald Trump, because it is a conflict of interest there, why should they support you instead of supporting another candidate that may possibly be better candidate?
Absolutely, and that's a great question, and that was one of the reasons I decided to run, because I've been battling with the same thing. Because we're used to usually, typically, and you're 100% right, and we have a perceived motion of certain people, and that's why. And I apologize again, like when I picked on saying you called him a prosecutor, but the reason why it is because it's a good point. We look at people differently. If a person, like, take a look at, for instance, Alexander Vindman, which is a great guy. He's a candidate running for Senate here, somebody I'm going to be helping. Somebody, me and him have identical paths. We came to the United States at the same time. We're almost the same age. We have almost very similar story. We came from the similar place. The difference is Alexander Vindman was fortunate. He had parents that he went to the army. He has a great career. He has, like you said, something that people could hang their hat on and be proud of. Me, on the other hand, I didn't have that same opportunity. I ended up on the streets of New York. I ended up with my father passing away. I ended up, going through through some of the hardest times, and those have seen, being around some of the biggest criminals in the world and getting a different life experience of world. So typically, I would agree with you 100%, and I would never even think of running. Me and my wife would even laugh at the emotion. But this is not those typical times, guys. This is a different world we live in. Right now, we are being controlled by a dictatorship. We are not going into authoritarianship. We are in authoritarianship. We have under a rule of control by a group of people that I know very well, better than anybody out there, especially better than any of my the people that are running in my race, including the incumbent that Trump is supporting. Okay, and by being in that world and by being knowing, just like we spoke about, one of the things I'm running out is like me and Congressman Rokana speak about is to stop these super PACs, special interests. Well, who better than me that knows how the money flows? Who better than me that knows who the people are and who's going to be held accountability? Now, if you take a look at my opponents in the race, they might be great guys. Like the number one guy, you guys didn't even mention that the establishment loves is Elliot Rodriguez.
Mhm.
Elliot Rodriguez just came in the race. He's 40 years a journalist.
Yeah.
He's a great, well spoken. I mean, wonderful guy. Won't say anything bad about him. But good guys is not somebody that's going to be able to do anything to Donald Trump. If you want somebody that's just going to go in there and just be another part of voting down the ballot, no matter what it is, no matter what their constituents want, and just to be one side or the other, then yeah, maybe Elliot's great. Elliot doesn't know Donald Trump. Elliot doesn't know any of these people. None of the candidates know. So when you get into that type of situation, we're at a time in our country right now where we need to do first before we could get into a place where we could discuss policy, where we could try to get back to that place where a person like me, my record with the criminals shouldn't be in Congress, which I agree with you. Just like I agree with you, Donald Trump with 34 convictions shouldn't be the president of the United States. But right now he is the president of the United States. So right now,
Yeah.
and that's what the Democrats needs to understand is they need to be able to fight this fight with people that know how to fight the fight. Once we win,
Yeah.
then we could go back to what's to go. So that is why I feel that yes, in a typical race in a regular world, I would agree with you guys. I would say yes, we want somebody that went to college, somebody maybe with a law degree, somebody that because typically
Yeah.
that gives us the qualifications. But today in the world we live, that doesn't mean anything because we see some of these same people that have these qualifications that like Pam Bondi, that was the attorney general, and she's going out there embarrassing the survivors. I was in that room with the survivors when Pam Bondi was asked by Congress that question, just turn around, and she wouldn't even get up and turn around to them. And she has a pedigree. If you put her pedigree with mine, would you say, would you rather have Lev Parnas or would you rather have Pam Bondi? I'm sure everybody agreed they'd rather have Lev Parnas, no matter what my records say, because we know what Pam Bondi's all about. So that's
100%.
why. So that's why I say it's a different time, it's a different world, and right now the most important focus is to win back our democracy. The other thing I want to mention why I entered this race, it's not just about District 27 where I'm running, guys, because District 27 is going to be the epicenter of what our midterms are about. Because, like, I'll give you an example. Like Jamie Raskin said to me, Lev, I can't wait till you win so you could be sitting next to me when we're questioning these guys, when you have the subpoena power. Because once we win and take the House, then there has to be accountability. And there's a lot of the old establishment, and you guys are young. You don't, I'm like you, I don't want us to, I'm against Hakeem Jeffries and Schumer and these guys. We need fresh blood in there. We need fighters. We need people in there. But to be able to have the opportunity to have that, so you guys have a chance of being able to do that, the Gen Z generation, we need to stop Trump at what he's doing. And there's nobody that's going to be able to stop Trump better than somebody that knows not only him, guys, but I know his whole inner circle. Pam Bondi, Cash Patel, I worked with all of them. I was part of making Mega, and I'm going to destroy Mega piece by piece, fact by fact, truth by
And you have
truth.
a great, I
So that's
mean,
what.
Lev, you have a great platform, and the information that you hold is very valuable. Clearly, you were on the inside. Why, instead of running, why couldn't you have given that information to a candidate that's running and used your platform to support that person? Because that
Great question.
information is as valuable as it is. You know,
Absolutely. No, great question, and incredible question, and I'll tell you the truth. And you're actually asking the right question, which a lot of journalists never ask me. And I give you, I want to commend you on that. That's a great question. So we did try to do that. My original plan is, and I don't know, maybe you missed some of my lives. We do so many of them, but originally, when I built my volunteer group that you've spoken to Jay and some of my volunteers, my original plan was to go out and reach out to Gavin Newsom. Because Gavin Newsom, I felt it showed me that he's going to be a fighter. Plus, I knew Kimberly Guilfoyle. I knew a lot about Gavin. I was gonna say, let's reach out to him. And instead of me using my information on here, because like you said, it's what's it called? We don't want
No,
to. Somebody just texted me. I'm sorry, the phone went up.
you're good.
But you know, what I'm saying to you. So I figured, let me be in the background. Let me use this my insight as my information instead of on Substack. Let them, because they have the resources. They have too. So long story short, Gavin Newsom, basically, their people reached out. My people reached out. At the end of the day, somebody from his office reached out to me and said that he can't speak to me. He's too busy doing podcasts, and I would have to speak to somebody. And I basically told them, forget about it. You know, I'm not going to speak to nobody and the inside. So you guys could go tell Trump or somebody. I said, you know, you guys are a joke. And I basically told Gavin Newsom, you know, he could continue his little campaign. He has no chance of winning because, and that's a separate story. But we're going to
Yeah.
get next. I went to Governor Prisker. I figured to myself, you know what? You know, Prisker, he's under attack. You know, Chicago's under attack. I could really help him. You know, you know, he's gonna make a run at president also. Let me help him out. Let me give him some
Yeah.
information. So Prisker's people reached out to me at first, saying to me, very excited, saying, "Yes, Lev, the governor wants you to fly you in," or you know. And I have text messages for all of this. So if any of them ever decide to come out here and try to doubt this, you know, I'm not here to you know, make arguments with people. But you guys ask a question, I'm going to tell you the
Yeah,
truth.
of course.
So basically, they then ghosted me. They just ghosted me. I don't ask me why. The, you know, and after a few weeks, I decide, you know, I'm done with them. And then basically, I went back to my Substack, and you know, and then sometime in October, I decided with my volunteers that I was gonna go starting the new year. I was gonna go on a tour. I was going to go on, and I started GoFundMe to raise enough money to be able to go on a tour, to be able to do what I'm doing on Substack, but go into some of these, you know, races where I could do the most help, where you know, like where certain Democratic races or independent races, where I could go in there and be the truth teller and you know, stir up some shit or whatever the case is, and help be able, because like I said, none of these races, none of these individuals know Trump or his inner circle, to try to help them. So we started that the campaign. We started raising money. Unfortunately, excuse me, GoFundMe has been withholding the money. We started having an issue with them releasing the money. We're still dealing with them on that. But while that was going on, my team, Jay, and them found me some people to start running this. You know, I started organizing this. What's it called? Like consultants talking about how we're going to do the tour. You know, the podcast. How's it going to look like? You know, and all of this stuff. And in the process, as we're talking about, I kept thinking to myself, like, I'm like, if I'm gonna do this, like, what's the difference if I don't? I could run for all. I would be more. I gotta do the same exact thing. I gotta go out there. I gotta risk my life. I gotta go campaign. I gotta go basically, and you know, why should I? And I can't go out there ask people for $6, $8 to subscribe to me. That's not me. I've never done that. I've done different businesses in my life. So I said to myself, you know what if I run for office? And at first it was, you know, whoever I asked laughed at me, from my attorneys to anybody I know, my volunteers, because you know I'm still on supervised release. Actually, you know, I'm still under supervised release. I can't vote. You know, so it was like a crazy thought. But I said to my attorneys, and I have the most powerful. You guys would know the names. I'm not going to mention them. The attorneys I
Yeah.
have, and I said, listen, I said at the end of the day, I said, if I could run, if you could show me, I want to run. And we looked through a lot of what's it called, and legally, I'm able to run. Legally, I might not be able to vote, but I'm legally able to run. And once I got the compliance to tell me that I'm legally able to run, you know, the next step was then convincing my family, because it's a major move. move. And after
How do you
having long conversations with my
how do you feel
family and
about
have
I just wanna just I don't
yeah,
wanna
yeah,
interrupt you
no,
here.
no,
I just
no,
wanna
go right
ask, how do
ahead.
you feel
Yeah.
about being able to run, but not actually being able to vote for yourself?
I think it's crazy. I think we live in a world where we need a lot of changes. We have a lot of laws on the record that's why Donald Trump uses all these loopholes. That's why we have so much. When the Constitution was written, 250 years ago, they couldn't foresee everything. It's not Nostradamus. It's not written and shouldn't be written in blood. We should have
Yeah.
changes. It's a new. So just like everything else, I believe that's part of why I think I would be a great addition to Congress is because I don't have loyalty to one party or the other. I'm a regular guy. I'm literally what Donald Trump ran on because I was never involved in politics, and the way I seen politics was so corrupt that I don't know any other way but exposing it. That's all I've been doing for the past 7 years. Every single day of my life is exposing this cabal, and I could tell you honestly, and before I decided to run, and after like the final decision for me was after speaking with my family, I flew out to Washington D.C. and I met with some very important Congress people that I look up to very much so that I think that and they told me that they're going to support me, that they think it's a great idea, and that I will be a tremendous help to our party. To the not everybody's going to like it, obviously. We're going to have some issues, but and once I got the blessing and everything, and that's why I made the choice and made the announcement.
Of
Oh, sorry about that. You guys froze for a second.
a bit of an
Uh,
internet issue here. Can you hear us well?
Yeah, there we go.
Awesome.
yeah, now I hear you. Yeah, now I hear you.
And so, thank you for answering those questions. The American people definitely want to hear about it and hear your past and why you believe that you're fully suitable for Congress. And we appreciate you answering that question. We're going to switch courses a little bit to a question that we've written up.
Yeah, in Florida, Lev, you've been entered a judgment, roughly $350,000 against you, with money tied to an elderly woman's trust in Boca Raton, Florida, which was an initial investment for a movie project you were involved with. That deal since collapsed, and the money was never paid back. Only after the courts ordered you to pay the money back was it then received. For voters watching in your district, the Florida's 27th, according to the census, about 19% of those are retirees and seniors themselves. How should they feel about this information?
Well, first of all, with all the respect, that's not factual information. The person that did the deal was the elderly
Pews.
woman's son. It
Yeah,
was the
Pews.
elderly woman's son, Michael Pews.
We just
So
mean it's
he
tied
was
to him.
Yeah,
well, well, no,
tied to her.
no, no,
Sorry.
no. But let's. I
Yeah, yeah.
understand, but we have to
Please,
clear it up
please correct
because
us.
the way you just made it seem is I took advantage of an elderly woman, and that we have elderly issues in Florida. That's not the case. Yes, he was managing his mother or family's fund. This individual I was doing business with. Yes, did I do a movie deal with him that went sour? Absolutely, it was his decision. I never spoke to his mother, never spoke to any of his relatives. It was his decision to use the money that was in his fund,
Yeah,
this well, the mother, to invest into a very speculative movie deal. At the end of the day, for whatever reason, I took full responsibility, even though we could discuss that on a different show. But to finalize, I took full responsibility, and I've been making payments and paying it off, and
yeah,
after judgment. So that is something that actually happened almost 15 to 16
Yeah.
years ago,
it was at
and
2011, and then it went up to like $500,000 with interest
correct.
in
and we and, and
2015.
we and we made and right before I went to prison, part of my redemption was and to clear it up, the courts didn't force me. Part of my redemption was I made a deal with them, and I've been paying it off prior to me even going to prison. And I even when a part of my what's it called bail money that I just was supposed to get received, I even forfeited it to go towards the repayment of my restitution. And that is so I am in extremely good standing with all my restitution payments and plan on paying back every single person, even though some of it sounds a little bit different, a lot harsher, because the way the Southern District makes it is different than what sometimes it really is. But at the end of the day, I'm making right on all of it. It's
Yeah,
something that
thank you.
happened. I made a mistake and I'm making. But I do agree with you that we have a tremendous problem here in South Florida with taking advantage of the elderly. That's another reason why I believe I would be such a tremendous candidate here, is because somebody that saw how it's done firsthand, somebody that was part of this back in the days, this telemarketing, somebody that saw how these elderly were taken advantage. There's nobody, like I said, better than me that understands how to fight this and to be able to make sure that the elderly are not taken advantage of. It's kind of, I'll give you an example, guys. The best way to understand it, I don't know if you guys know, but some of the best people in the FBI and our CIA and our counterintelligence are actually former criminals, like former data hackers, former what's it called? Because just because you're a criminal, sometimes it's been even proven that the mind works. That if you were given a chance to be on the right side of the track, you could have been somebody powerful. So when people get redemption and get better, sometimes those people become some of the most useful people in our country because they know, just like certain people that helped destroy the mob. We would never have destroyed the mob if we didn't have people from inside the mob that sometimes did bad things to be able to tell. Same thing with Wall Street. All of these big corporations, if you take almost any case, the only reason you have that is because you have a corporate cooperation of people on the inside. And that is why, if you take a look at the Trump organization, the only way we could take it down is with people from the inside. And then you could clean it up and then make it move on. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you, and we appreciate that. We loved hearing your answer, and so just to kind of get to the next question, because we just want to try and get them all done. We don't want you to sit here all too
Absolutely.
long.
No worries.
Lev, in 2022, and we know you're open about your past. You were sentenced to 20 months in federal prison. You said that for campaign finance violations and fraud. You had set up a company called Fraud Guarantee, which was, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, was a company to protect people from fraud. Investors invested $2 million. You pulled that money out as cash payments for travel, casino spending, and at sentencing, U.S. District Judge James Paul Oatkin, who was nominated by President Barack Obama, he graduated from Yale. We believe he's a very qualified judge. He
Best
said,
judge. Best judge.
yeah. But Judge Oatkin said that fraud appeared to be a, quote, way of life for you. And so for Americans who may not know that history and are now hearing you talk about running for Congress, how should they believe that fraud is no longer a way of life for you? And what do you think about that?
Yeah. So first of all, again, thank you for the question, and you got to understand the way it's written in the documents is, and let me explain to you. I did not steal $2 million. We had a company that we raised $1.2 million between three or four of my friends. It was not some Bernie Madoff operation. It was a company, a startup, to be able to do fraud against an insurance company, basically against fraud. It was the anti-Bernie Madoff policy. At some point, yes, I ran into some personal issues and maybe spent probably about 280,000, maybe 300,000 out of that money on my personal expenses from living, whatever. It could be anything that they've written there. I take full responsibility. Half a million going forward out of that money was taken by Rudy Giuliani. That basically, never got spoken about. That was brought up in court. That you could read in the transcripts also.
Yeah,
But I ended up having to take the hit on it because the way the prosecutors in the Southern District decided that they were not going to go after Rudy Giuliani and nobody else. So at the end of the day, yes, was there a fraud? I mean, the fraud was, trying to build a business, lied to my partners because I was hoping to get certain things done. It's no excuse. I still lied to them. I still apologize. I'm paying them back. But it wasn't a fraud, where like they tried to portray like Bernie Madoff. You gotta understand, if fraud was a way of life for me, then how come I never got convicted? How come I've been living here for 50 years? I've never even got a parking ticket. I've never had any. No, the only time I got got convicted and arrested was when I started working for the president of the United States. Now, that's not to say I didn't do some bad things in my life. That doesn't say that I didn't get away with things in my life. I absolutely did. And that's why, I have a documentary talking fully about my life, because part of my redemption is, it's like, going to the 12-step program, Alcoholics Anonymous, Gamblers Anonymous. Part of my Gamblers Anonymous is you have to come clean with everything. You have to cut off the past. It's like being born again. And sometimes that's a lot better than, dealing with somebody that you don't know. Because, there's a saying that goes, you're only as good until you turn bad. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So like when you look at people like, like for instance, people that are running against me, they could be model citizens until one day you find out breaking news, scandal. How many times do you see that? Congress people, Menendez, he was a great congressperson for the Democrats until all of a sudden there was gold found in in his pockets. Now he's serving 15 years in jail. So what I'm saying to you, it's with me. I've gone through it, I've seen it, and now I'm using everything that I've seen on the dark side to be able to help the bright side right now. And I've been doing it for 7 years now, every single day. And the one thing I could tell you also, guys, that I welcome you to also look into, because I think it's important. Because for 7 years I've been speaking on every platform, from Under Oath to New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, NBC, you name it, I've done it. And you can't find out one article about people saying, except for Rudy Giuliani saying it a couple of times, that I've ever lied about anything, that I've ever exaggerated anything. One of the things that people, what they love about me is I bring the receipts. And when I talk about something, I bring the receipts. When I break the news, that's why people, journalists like Wajahid Ali and every journalist out there, like Joy Reid and everywhere, when they call me every day for breaking news. So what I'm saying to you is, I've gone through so much repentance that I'm at the point where, I understand everybody wants that clean cut person. I understand everybody wants those, but you have to decide today what's more important: getting our country back, getting our freedom back, or trying to get that perfect candidate that we dream of, like that, like Trump says, out of central casting.
Yeah, thank you, Lev. You mentioned Giuliani and Trump. Can we discuss your past relationship with both of them?
Absolutely, of course.
You were convicted. I was just gonna say, you were convicted of campaign finance violations, which we've already gone over. Donating $325,000 to American First Super PAC through a shell company, which we discussed.
It wasn't a shell company. It
It-
wasn't a shell company.
Global
No,
Energy wasn't a shell company.
absolutely not.
Okay, so
Well,
it was a
tell me,
functioning company that just had donated money to the
We
campaign.
we mean the
correct,
names were hidden.
correct.
Okay.
Correct. The names were not
So
hidden. There were no hidden names, and that's why this is why I'm saying you guys do have to do a little bit more journalism, because you're reading from a certain part. But after the trial, because the complaint came from the elections, FEC, the federal elections. How did my
Yeah.
start? The Federal Elections Committee filed a complaint. Well, have you found a letter where on July 1st, right after this, what you're reading, that the federal elections sent a letter saying that they found me not guilty of any elections fraud, campaign finance things, that it was not for a company. So what I'm saying to you is, I take responsibility for being involved in certain things I did in my
Okay.
past. But what I'm saying to you is, and I want to also compliment on Judge Oken, Paul Oken, because I want to say this: he's an incredible judge. Because for those of you that need to understand that I went to trial, I did not take a plea deal. And my trial, when I lost my trial, the prosecutors were asking for 120 months, folks. That's over 10 years in prison. That's what they wanted to give me. Paul, the judge, gave me 20 months. Not only did the judge give me 20 months, he gave me 20 months because he said I was considered the leader of the group. But my co-defendants, they all took a plea deal for 5 years. They were supposed to go to prison for 5 years. But the judge didn't sentence them for 5 years because he said that I want to wait till the case is over to see. And once the judge saw that this was a political case and that we shouldn't have even been arrested, he sentenced all my co conspirators to 1 year and 1 day in prison. and I only spent 4 months in prison. So,
Okay.
Thank you for
so
that
thank
clarification.
God to this judge. Yeah, I agree with you. The judge
The-
was incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
And
reason we bring that up is because we wanted to discuss Ron DeSantis because you are running in his state, and you at the same
Absolutely.
time you also donated around $50,000 to his campaign, and
Yep.
was notably you were also at the inauguration and were photographed as one of the first person that he greeted with the hug. Could you tell us a
I
little
put
bit
him in
more about
office.
that relationship with DeSantis, and how are you going to work with him to protect the citizens of Florida when you guys have vastly different goals?
Well, first of all, he's having a heart attack. It's not how I'm gonna have to work with him. It's how he's gonna has to work with me, because you want to see Ron DeSantis. I'm gonna show you something about Ron DeSantis, so you understand why Ron DeSantis is worried about left Parnas, not left Parnas worried about Ron DeSantis. Okay, this is my relationship with Ron DeSantis, boys. So what I'm trying to say to you is, I made Ron DeSantis. I introduced him to Donald Trump, and it's wide open because he cut a deal with me by legalizing cannabis in Florida. I basically introduced him to Giuliani and Trump. Trump went to do the rally, and now he became governor of the state. Since then, Ron DeSantis has tried to, just like Donald Trump, pretend that he doesn't know who I am. And now, since I've entered the race, I threw a little sticker, because now not only is Ron DeSantis have a big problem, but also Nelson Bryanson, the one that is running against David Jolly, because I know all of them very well. So I'm planning on, by me getting into the race, I'm going to help the Democrats up and down the Florida ticket, especially now we have a chance of winning the governor's race, because just like you said, now because of me entering the race, now DeSantis and all of them have to be in there. So one of the things that also brings is national attention. I'll give you an example. A race like this should they're raising what, 1 million, 2 million maximum. Since I entered the race, I've had sources that call me up inside Trump camp. They're planning on getting 10 to 12 million behind Salazar to go after me. I'm just giving you an example, because this is a major race. Because you also have to understand another thing that I have over all of them. Recently, an article came out. I don't know if you guys seen about or what's his name, and not only Ron DeSantis, but the senator here, who happens to be right now, what's his name? Oh my God! With the
You're talking about
little hands, Marco Rubio. So Marco Rubio. I'm sorry, I just went blank.
no,
Sorry.
you're
So
good.
we
Marco
forget his name
Rubio.
too.
Yeah. Little Marco. So Marco, right now, there's a big case happening in Florida right now that's connected to Venezuela and everything that's going on, because Marco Rubio and his right hand, and Susie Wiles and Brian Ballard. See, you guys, like, I'll give you another thing. You guys know that I worked with Brian Ballard, correct? Correct?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, Brian Ballard is the number one lobbyist in Florida. Brian Ballard is where Susie Wiles was partners in, who is the chief of staff, which I know very well. So is Pam Bondi, who is the attorney general, who I know very well, very, very well. So what I'm saying to you is, these are the people that now have to deal with me, that are part of the administration. If I don't run, and any of your other opponents there, I have very, very few chance of beating the party there right now, unfortunately, because if you take a look and you go down to and I live in that district. If you take a look, Trump was just down there. Doral is right around the corner, and I could tell you, the money and the support they had put in there. The Democrats, should be they should pray that I'm healthy every day, that I
Mhm.
could go out there and do this, because right now, that's why there's such excitement in Florida. Since I've entered the race, there's a lot of maneuvering going on. So I think it's the best thing that could happen to him. But guys, I don't want to cut you off in any way. Maybe we could do a part two. I know we started off. I know I have a 3 o'clock, and I'm running late to that. So if maybe we could I'm more than welcome to come back and continue this, because I think you guys have maybe do some more questions, some due diligence, and spend an hour on just questions and not going into the first part of it, because I apologize, but I wanted to clear the air before we got into it.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we're running short on time here, no worries.
Is there any
Um,
question that you really want to ask before we go? To be fair to you, I'll do one more question just to make sure if there's any
Yeah.
one.
We,
Yeah,
we
go
have a
ahead, and then
we have a pretty strong question for you, and this
yeah,
might be
please go ahead.
difficult to answer, but of course,
No, please
you
go ahead.
Okay. In 2019, you and Igor Fruman, that's your business associate, you said, we're
Yeah.
in Ukraine on behalf of Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani to investigate Hunter and Joe Biden. We're just providing context for people who might not know,
Mhm.
specifically to get Ukraine to open an investigation with the intent of losing Joe Biden the presidential bid. You were told to make it clear that if Ukraine did not announce an investigation into Hunter Biden, that there would be, quote, no relationship, no military aid, no medical aid. And after they didn't announce an investigation, military aid to Ukraine was delayed. Vice President Mike Pence didn't attend the inauguration of Zelensky, which put Ukraine in a very vulnerable position against Russia, as they no longer appeared to have U.S. backing moving forward. And so, do you believe that your actions contributed to putting Ukraine at risk and putting them in a vulnerable state with the current war it's facing right now?
Well, I think there's a lot in that question. And first of all, you're 100% right. I was the one that gave the quid quo pro because I was sent there by Trump, and it was and that they were. That's when the Trump stopped the military aid, and that's what the impeachment happened. And did that hurt Ukraine? 100%. And that's why in my documentary is, yeah, like I said, I betrayed not only my country, I betrayed my both my countries, my birth country and my country here. But I did it at a time, and it's not an excuse, but being in a cult, guys, is like being a drug addict. It's like being in that your mind does different things. That's why a lot of people in Trump's cult right now, there's a lot of good people there that are just their brain went a different way because of whatever it is. Just like people who do drugs, whatever it is. There's just like people have psychological problems. There's no answer or cure to all of these things, and that's why we look into. But at that time, I was so far in the cult that I truly believed that I was going to be that what I was doing was the proper thing. That Zelensky was because at that point Zelensky was also working, being represented by Igor Kolomoisky, who was somebody that now Zelensky put in prison. He was a wanted oligarch here in the United States. So it wasn't just cut and dry like that. There's a lot of corruption in Ukraine at that time. There was a lot of things I was investigating. Zelensky came out of nowhere at the time. Also, nobody expected him to win. When Trump sent me there to talk to him, me and Igor knew Zelensky. Igor used to pay Zelensky $50,000 to come perform at his clubs. So you have to understand. So it was, that type. So, but that without justifying right or wrong, it was absolutely wrong. Obviously, we now know, as being Monday morning quarterbacks. But I think that, if it wasn't me, it would have been somebody else because Donald Trump sent that message to Zelensky plenty of times, not just through me, through several people, through Bolton, through Pence, through different. I mean, now that history has spoken, you guys obviously know it already. That's what he got impeached for. But yeah, I mean, it was an unfortunate thing, but at the end of the day, I've been since the day 2022 from the first day that Ukraine got invaded. I think I've helped Ukraine more than anybody in Ukraine itself. I've over $200 million worth of aid I helped get into Ukraine. I mean, I think more than a billion already because I am the one that helped Howard Buffett. If it wasn't for me, Howard Buffett wouldn't be in Ukraine helping it. And so this day I help Ukraine and the people there, my family there. So yeah, I mean it was a very unfortunate thing, but it wasn't the cause of what's happening right now. Because after that, we didn't have a war. We 3 years passed since then.
But
So
but you
so
do believe it put that in a vulnerable position?
Do you
I
think
mean,
that kind of what?
vulnerable again. Like there was a war going on in the Donbass area.
Hmm.
The delay. I mean, technically, yes. Could you say lives were lost in Ukraine? Absolutely. I mean, but you're dealing with technicality because it's not like it was stopped for a long time, and it's not like there were still weapons going on. There was certain weapons. I mean, what I'm saying to you is, it wasn't like a cut and dry where all of a sudden one day, put it this way,
Yeah,
it wasn't as
Yeah,
bad
yeah.
as it is right now. It wasn't as bad as it is right now where they get zero ammunition from the United
no.
States. It was it was more like, yes, it was more of a procedural thing. And was it bad? Absolutely. But to the degree how bad it was, I can't tell you. That's something, we would have to ask people like Fiona Hill or others
Yeah,
that were on the inside that could tell you. I mean, you should interview, you should have me and Olivia Troy or me and Miles Taylor on.
I'd love to.
We always have, we're great friends, and we always talk about, I'm interested also we always talk about what it was when I was doing it there and they were doing it there, since we've been. So yeah, so absolutely. But
Hey, thank you, Lev,
yeah,
so
yeah.
much. Thank you so
Th-
much.
Thank you guys, and I apologize if I came off a little bit
No,
rough, around the edges. I wasn't upset about anything except the Michael Cohen thing, because I thought because no, because I'll tell you honestly, because Michael Cohen is not a good person, and it's not a personal thing between me and Michael Cohen. I mean, he's in the Epstein files. He's right now trying to attack Letitia James, trying to get Donald Trump off his conviction, trying to get back. And the one thing that nobody's talking about, Michael Cohen has become friends with a lot of Democrats and a lot of people in the social media over the past 8 years. And now he's going to use that to help Trump to go after certain people. A lot of people are not sleeping well tonight, just like with the Epstein files. That's what I'm saying to you because of what's it called. So when I come out and I go after like a Michael Cohen, and then tries to use people like good guys like yourself, and again, you didn't mean to do it, and I
Yeah,
understand. That's what, and we need to. That's the one thing. Like I even told the Democratic Party, and that's the one thing I want to tell everybody out there, to all us. We might agree or disagree with the candidate, but let's win on the other candidate's good the reasoning, and not try to destroy the other candidate. Meaning, like, if you believe whoever candidate you like, great. Talk about his achievements. Don't try to prop a candidate up because of somebody's bad achievements. You know what I'm saying to you? Because that doesn't make the other person a good guy. Just because the other guy is a bad guy. Do you understand what I mean? And that's what a
yeah, and
lot of
that's
times.
not what we were trying to come across. We
Not
were just
you, not you,
giving
not you
options.
guys, not you guys, not
Yeah,
you guys. But that's my message to all, because
yeah,
primaries, because that's what happens in primaries. I mean, this is what primaries are about. And when I speak to Democrats, I tell them, don't eat your own, don't crush yourselves in the primaries and then be left out there. Right now is the time to unify, to be able to take it, and don't worry about so much about each and every policy. You might not agree at it now, but right now, if we don't get Trump out of there, we won't have these primaries. We're not going to have these things, because he's literally trying to steal our election, and it's a lot more dangerous than even any of you guys even know. So I apologize. I thank you for having me on. I appreciate all the hard work you guys do. If I can't help in any way, let me know. I'm also, like I said, if you want to have me on with any of the other my opponents anytime, absolutely. Anything to do, I'm just not looking, for the rage bait controversial. I could do that also. You know what I'm saying to you?
yeah,
I could play both games, but I think we're on the same page, and we're trying to get to the bottom, try and get good
yeah,
candidates in there. We're trying to get Donald Trump out of there,
and that's
and
what
we're
our mission
trying
is.
to
yeah. And we just
exactly.
want to
So,
get your message out to the voters of Florida and to the
I
citizens of the
appreciate it.
United States.
God bless
And
you
just
guys. I
make sure that,
appreciate that.
yeah, yeah. Again, thank you for coming on, Lev. We'll let you go
Thank
do
you so
things
much.
and take the rest of your day. But yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for everybody who's watching right now. There's so many of you guys in here. Again, thank you for sorting Centered America. Thank you for all the stuff that you do to prop up this wonderful, amazing community we built here on Substack. This has been an interview with Lev Parnas. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks,
Thank
Lev.
you, and support independent journalism, especially young guys. I'm from now on, I'm going to go follow you. I'm all in with you guys. So, thank you for having me. No,
Thank
because
you.
Thanks, Lev.
because that's what we need. And listen, we all make mistakes in life. It's all good about, but that's how. And you guys are on the right track. This is what we need, because all of this other media out there, ask the hard questions, just like you ask me. I praise you. But they all need to answer the hard, because a lot of times, truth is very hard. And I tell that to everybody. Speaking truth to power is sometimes the hardest thing to do. So don't be scared to ask the hard
Yeah.
question, and don't be scared. So I give you props,
And I
guys.
think everybody
Very,
in
very
this
good.
chat, including me and Sharad, applaud you so much for taking initiative and taking accountability for the truth, even when it is uncomfortable, because it allows us to have a better centered America and
Absolutely.
a more centered America.
And a
Really.
unified country. So
Centered. I love that. I love that. More centered America. That's what I'm calling. I like that. Great motto. Take care, guys. Have a
Thank you.
great
You
one.
too, Lev.
bye.
Bye bye.